Hey everyone, welcome to the WNP podcast. This is a show where a bunch of idiots discuss all things sports, from crazy predictions to juicy trade rumors. It's all for fun and for the love of the game. Thanks so much for stopping by, and as always, we're not professionals. Hello everyone, welcome to the WNP podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mitchelson, and joining me today, as always, my co-host, Chase Crawshaw. How are you today, Chase?
Doing pretty swell. The NFL draft's coming up here in just 4 short days, so getting pretty amped. How are you?
Oh, I'm very excited. We haven't had sports in forever because of the pandemic, and all I want is sports. The free agency was awesome. We had a bunch of trades like DeAndre Hopkins moving teams. Just a bunch of crazy stuff happening in the NFL world. The only world that is still functioning in sports. So I am very excited for this NFL draft. And I feel like this has been the most excited I've been for a draft in a while. But at the same time, like, the first overall pick for the Cincinnati Bengals has kind of been known for the past couple of months, so I'm not super excited for that pick, but overall the draft I'm super excited for. How about you?
Yeah, I feel you there. It's gonna be Joe Burrow number 1 overall unless something drastic happens. So that part is lowest pointing, and then you would assume that number 2 is Chase Young, blah blah blah. But we'll get into that later. So yeah, the first couple picks, the first 2 are probably already predetermined. But the rest, especially with NFL executives saying that people are way off on their mocks this year, it really could create for something that just nuts. Really, it's the best word I can explain it. But
Yeah, exactly. And when they said that, when NFL execs had come out and said that mock drafts are super off, I'm like, holy cow, who are some players that we could see jump up to that first round? Or who are some players that are mocked in every single first round but are actually going to be a second round, third round type of guy? So we are going to do a couple things in this episode. So first off, we're going to do a full 32 pick first round mock draft. So over the past couple of episodes, we have been kind of deep diving into teams and what picks they should take where. Instead of finishing up with picks 25 through 32, we're just going to do a full mock draft. A full mock draft for you guys. We're going to have some graphics on the screen, and it's going to be really fun for us. And then finally, after that mock draft is over, we've got 5 categories that we have assigned one particular prospect. And we're going to talk about the category, talk about that prospect a little bit, why we think they fit that category. So first up, let's start with our mock draft right away, Chase. This is, again, probably going to be 100% incorrect. But you know what? We love doing mock drafts, so we're going to try it. So here we go. First on the clock, you got the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati Bengals are selecting quarterback Joe Burrow out of LSU. Like you said, Chase, not really a surprise here.
Nope, that's been the pick for months. Joe Burrow is probably the most ready NFL quarterback we've seen in quite a bit. Doesn't mean he necessarily has the highest ceiling, but he's the most NFL ready. He could come in and the right team with the right weapons could be a playoff team. So if the Bengals can do the right things for him, he could have a very successful rookie year, have one of the better rookie years we've ever seen from a quarterback. But we'll see where his ceiling can take him. I have a lot of faith in him. You're starting to slowly develop that faith in him, Mike, as you realize he's going to be your team's quarterback for the next at least few years. So I'm happy you're finally getting on that train because I think he can be a very good NFL quarterback.
Yeah, and I agree with your point about being the most NFL-ready quarterback in the last couple of years, because I do agree with that. He's a little bit of an older guy, and he had one of the best college seasons of all time. Again, the ceiling, that's where we differ a little bit. I know you have more faith in him. I'm trying to grow it because he is going to be my quarterback. I'm going to root for him 100% if he does indeed become my quarterback, but I got to be a little realistic. So if you guys want to know our ceilings on Joe Burrow, we did that a couple episodes ago. You can take a look at that. But next up, Chase, you are on the clock with the Washington Redskins. Who do you have the Redskins selecting here?
Pretty obvious choice. Redskins are going to select defensive end Chase Young out of Ohio State. This guy is probably the best prospect in the draft. That quarterback value obviously increases the value of all the quarterbacks in the draft, but Chase Young's probably just the best pure prospect. The Redskins don't even necessarily need him. I think they have a solid pass rusher that is, but this guy's going to come in and just make him even more dynamic and explosive. He's got a supreme amount of talent. I know some people were worried about his last couple games of production after coming back from that 1-game suspension he had. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Everyone goes through cold spurts in their careers in sports. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it. He should have no problem being a perennial Pro Bowler in his career.
Yeah, most definitely. Chase Young, definitely the pick here. Best player in the draft in my mind and a lot of people's minds. And with that comment about the lack of production in his last couple of games, he was still a menace out there. He was getting double teamed, getting pressures. He may not have the sack numbers, but he was making everything easier for the rest of that Ohio State defense. So Chase Young, best player here. Easy pick for the Washington Redskins, I think. I don't think they should even think about trading out because that guy is just that good.
Agreed.
Next up, with the third overall pick, we have the Chargers. The LA Chargers, they trade up with the Detroit Lions. A couple different trade possibilities could happen here. The Lions will get that sixth overall pick, but there's been rumors maybe Desmond King, the corner, comes from LA going over to Detroit. Who knows? We could also just see, a second and a couple other picks being swapped as well. So we have the Chargers trading up. Don't know 100% what the trade would be. It'd be very interesting if Desmond King did happen to move over to Detroit, but we shall see. In our mock, we've got the Chargers selecting quarterback Justin Herbert out of Oregon. We got Justin Herbert going above Tua. It seems like over the past couple of weeks, we've had a little bit more reluctancy to take Tua this highly. A lot of teams are coming out saying, we are a little bit worried, actually. And we think that Justin Herbert would be the perfect fit for the Chargers. So the Chargers can't wait at number 6 and hope that Herbert falls. Rather, they have to jump up to that number 3 spot, take him right there before the Dolphins have the chance.
Yeah, Justin Herbert's my favorite quarterback in the draft. I think he's the guy who's got supreme potential. The Chargers would be a great fit for him, in my opinion. He's going to a team that has a lot of offensive weapons already for him to work with. He can sit if he needs to. They got Tyrod Taylor, who can kind of, hold the reins for maybe half the season, maybe throw Herbert in for the second half, then take over from there. I think it's a pretty ideal position, and to trade up to that third overall pick, I don't think they're giving up crushing trade capital. I think they can give a pretty fair value and still get that pick. So it's just a good move for the Chargers.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Tyrod Taylor, very serviceable. So if they're not 100% in on Herbert being the guy on week 1, that's completely fine. He can sit behind one of the more professional quarterbacks in the league in Tyrod Taylor. But next up, Chase, we've got the Giants on the clock at number 4. Who do you have the New York Giants selecting?
The Giants will definitely take offensive tackle Tristan Wirfs, out of Iowa. Wirfs is one of the best, if not the best, offensive lineman in this draft. His stock has gone up quite a bit as Andrew Thomas's, for whatever reason, has been falling through this whole draft process. He was a guy who a lot of people looked at as the best guy coming into the season. Things have changed. Wirfs, had great production. He is a guy who truly looks ready to transition right into an NFL job, not really have too many struggles. So I think this is just a great safe pick for your young quarterback and young running back to bolster that O-line.
Yeah, I agree. Tristan Wirfs, I think, is the best offensive tackle in this group, at least with the highest upside, as well as the capability of being able to start right away. Tristan Wirfs, a good pick. I wouldn't be shocked if they look Isaiah Simmons here at that number 4 spot, but we'll have to wait and find out on Thursday. Next up, we got the Miami Dolphins with that number 5 overall selection. The Miami Dolphins, who knows? Are they going to go offensive tackle? Or are they going to go a different position because Tua may fall? No, they're not. They're going to go Tua out of Alabama. He is the best quarterback available as of right now. I personally think he is the number 2 when it comes to being able to start quickly. I think Herbert needs a little bit more time than Tua does. But I agree with Chase. Herbert would be my favorite overall quarterback. But Tua, a great pick for the Miami Dolphins. If the injury isn't 100%, that's completely fine. They got Ryan Fitzmagic back there that can, start for the Dolphins for a little bit while Tua is getting healthy. But I think they need to address quarterback, and that's what they do here.
I agree, and yeah, as you said, if he's not ready to go because of injury or maybe he's just not physically, mentally ready to do it, Fitzpatrick can start for a few games. I don't think Tua would sit for a full season personally. On a team like the Dolphins, if you went to a team like the Packers, who already have a great quarterback, that would be the best situation for him in my opinion. He can just truly chill, let all of his injuries subside, sit for a year or two, and then take over the job. But still, a team like the Dolphins could be a solid fit. They're developing some young offensive weapons. Devontae Parker finally came onto the scene. They're going to do something about that running back in this draft, you would assume. If not, Jordan Howard still isn't a bad option. So they got some weapons that they can use, and a young quarterback could really do well in that system. As you know, I'm a big fan of Brian Flores. I think he's got what it takes to be a very quality NFL coach.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. Tua, a guy that's, we've heard a lot of things. Could he slip because of these injuries? No, he's not going to slip because he's a premier talent. This might be one of those players NFL execs were talking about where, hey, your mock drafts are completely wrong. Maybe Tua is going to be the number 1 overall pick. Highly doubtful. But also, maybe Tua's dropping to the Patriots or something. Who knows what's happening? Tua might be one of those guys NFL execs are talking about. But let's now move on to the number 6 overall pick. This is the Detroit Lions. Originally the Chargers pick, now the Lions pick. Chase, who do you have your Detroit Lions selecting here with that number 6 overall pick?
This trade just becomes a win-win for the Lions. Assuming they get draft picks, they get their guy they want anyway, and Jeffrey Okudah 6th overall. If they get Desmond King back in the trade, then maybe they go Isaiah Simmons here. But we're assuming that it's draft picks. They get Jeff Okudah. They get their number 1 corner. They're in a good spot. This guy is one of the best corner prospects that we've ever seen. He's in a really good position to come and produce immediately day one, be a very high-end corner, can match up against some of the best receivers in the league. It's a great fit for the Lions, something they really need after trading Slay. So I think it's just a perfect, seamless transition for him.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Okudah is my number 2 player in this draft. I think my top 3 are Chase Young, Jeff Okudah, Isaiah Simmons. Quarterbacks, great. You need quarterbacks. Quarterbacks are always going to be highly touted and taken top overall. But when it comes to pure talent and how good the player is, Jeff Okudah, my number 2. So a great selection for the Detroit Lions. They get rid of Slay, replace him with Jeffrey Okudah. Next up on the clock, we've got the Carolina Panthers picking at number 7. They are looking to fill the spot of Luke Kuechly, who just retired. They nab my number 3 player, Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson. A very versatile player, but honestly, he's got the size to play linebacker, so I'm not sure why everyone's so bullish on him playing that linebacker position. He's got great coverage skills, no doubt, but that doesn't mean he's any less of a linebacker. So Isaiah Simmons, he comes in, helps replace that Luke Kuechly spot for the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, no, it's a good pick. Probably the best available player at this spot. I think if you do draft a guy like Isaiah Simmons, though, you have to be willing to use him in different spots because he's just not used to playing in one position. So, use him heavy at the linebacker, sure, get him acclimated to that position, but don't be afraid to throw him at slot corner. Don't be afraid to throw him back as a safety. Whatever you got to do, just make him comfortable, especially as a young rookie and who's going to be the focal point of your defense. Just make him comfortable, let him do things that he's used to doing. Then as time goes on, you can try to maybe specialize him a little more in things. Or if he proves he's just too dynamic and can really do everything, then let him keep doing everything.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think that's the downside for anyone. If a team can get one player that can be the jack of all trades and play everywhere and be really good and excel at all positions, then, hey, you got one of the best players in the draft. Next up, Chase, we got the 8th overall selection. That's the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals are selecting who?
That would be Mr. Jedrick Wills, offensive lineman out of Alabama. I'd say it's pretty fair pick. The Cardinals really need to bolster that O-line. They've got tremendous offensive weapons. Their O-line is just so terrible. You got a young quarterback, a mobile guy who, he's able to escape when the offensive line collapses. So that's something that they really benefited from last year. But if he can have the offensive line be a little more steady, a little more secure, he can get more passes off now that he's got a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. He's got developing Christian Kirk. They have some great young receivers and Akeem Butler, Andy Isabella, and of course they still got Larry Fitz too. And Kenny Drake's a great running back. So they have all these great offensive weapons that if they have a bad offensive line, it's just going to hold them back. So improve the offensive line as much as you can. Improve Kyler Murray's passing ability, and they could do some really special things.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Jedrick Wills, a great pick for the Arizona Cardinals, and really a guy that maybe dropping into that 3rd or 4th offensive tackle position in this draft class. You got other players that are phenomenal, like Mekhi Becton, like Andrew Thomas. But Chase, you and I, we like Jedrick Wills a lot. He brings a lot of experience out of Alabama. He's a great overall player, a guy that's going to be a good pass defender or a pass blocker for Kyler Murray, and just really the best overall pick I think they could have gone there.
Agreed.
Next up, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars picking at number 9, and they select Derek Brown, defensive lineman out of Auburn. I think Derek Brown may not have been the pick before Calais Campbell got traded, but now that Calais Campbell is gone, the Jags really need everything. But I think Derek Brown is probably best available player here, and they fill in a spot that they just got rid of in Calais Campbell.
Yeah, Derek Brown's he's a very supremely talented D lineman. He's someone who admittedly says he has a lot to go in his game. He's very dominant in some aspects, but like he's not like a very broad D lineman. He's trying to increase his ability on his pass rush. He's working on trying to create more like finesse moves, power moves, trying to really refine his whole game. He's talked about that during this like pandemic in some interviews. So he's a guy who, if a team can draft him and really develop him right, he could be a super scary player in the NFL. But at the same time, I think he's a guy, if a team drafts him and doesn't develop him right, he can be nothing more than solid. So hopefully the Jags are the right team for him. I think it's a good pick. I think this pick makes a lot of sense. So hopefully he can just reach that ceiling.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Derek Brown going to that number 9 spot, it's really good value. And for a guy to be humble and saying he's still got a lot of work to do and a long way to go when it comes to developing his game, that's an awesome thing to see. And I also think he was probably the best defensive player when it came to the SEC. So a dominant defensive lineman there to help out the Jacksonville Jaguars, and really they need a lot there. So Chase, next up, pick number 10.
Pick number 10, we've got the Cleveland Browns selecting offensive lineman Mekhi Becton from Louisville. It's a pick I'm a little worried about. Becton had that tremendous combine, really impressed a lot of scouts, a lot of fans. He's going to go up draft boards because of it. And I think he's a good player. I'm a little wary on him being a top 10 guy personally. I don't think he's better than some of the offensive linemen that go after him, but we think, just the way he performed at the combine, the way that the Browns like to draft, this just seems like their kind of guy. So I would be a little wary on this pick, but it's a very Browns pick in my opinion.
Yeah, and the Browns do need to address the offensive line, so they could have gone Becton like we have them going. They could have gone Andrew Thomas, maybe another route. But we think Mekhi Becton is their type of player, so they go there. And they also added Jack Conklin in free agency, so maybe Mekhi Becton's not ready right away for that left tackle position. You can play him on the right side for a little bit, let him develop his game more, get a little better at the pass blocking, and then he can swing back over to the left side. So still a solid pick, still a solid player, a guy with incredible physical tools. Might not have the refined game that teams want to see yet, though. So we'll see what happens with Mekhi Becton. Next up, the 11th overall selection, the New York Jets. They are looking wide receiver, and they're going to go our favorite wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb out of Oklahoma. A little bit of a bigger bodied guy compared to Jerry Jeudy. Not a route runner like Jerry Jeudy. That doesn't mean he's bad at running routes, but we think he's just the better overall player when it comes to physical attributes, when it comes to, red zone threats and everything else. So we go CeeDee Lamb with that 11th overall selection.
Yeah, when it comes to the NFL, route running is obviously a big thing. So long run, maybe Jerry Jeudy's the better player. And I think Jerry Jeudy's still an NFL-ready guy. But I think CeeDee Lamb is one of the most NFL-ready receivers that we've seen in quite a bit, because he just got these great physical traits. He's smart. He knows where to get open. He knows how to get open. He holds on to the ball. He's going to be a dominant player as a rookie. He's got so much potential. He can really help out this Jets team in a big way. They really need that weapon, especially since Robbie Anderson is now gone. Sam Darnold needs a true number one target to throw to. CeeDee Lamb will be his number one guy this year and will put up some pretty fun numbers.
Yeah, and some people may point to CeeDee Lamb and say, well, he's had amazing quarterbacks. He had Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts. I think that's more of a testament to CeeDee Lamb himself, as he was there, the number one option for all of those Heisman-winning quarterbacks. So CeeDee Lamb, our top guy on the board, he goes number 11. Next up, Chase, you got number 12.
Yeah, with pick number 12, we got the Oakland Raiders selecting Jerry Jeudy out of Alabama. So the top two receivers go back-to-back. This pick just makes a lot of sense. The Raiders thought they had their high-end receiver with Antonio Brown last year. Oh, we saw how that all worked out. Quite a shame. Regardless, they're getting Jerry Jeudy. Is, as you mentioned, the best route runner in the draft. Perfect for a guy like Derek Carr, who isn't going to put up big yardage, but he's a pretty accurate quarterback. He's efficient. So as long as he can find his receiver open on the routes, which Jerry Judy running such a strong route tree, such a diverse route tree, should make it very possible. They could be a very fun combination together for the next few years.
Yeah, most definitely. Jerry Judy, great selection. Definitely the top two wide receivers stand heads above the next couple of receivers, at least in our mind. Next up, we've got the San Francisco 49ers selecting with that 13th overall selection, Javon Kinlaw out of South Carolina. This was an interesting pick for us. We weren't exactly sure where to go. We know the San Francisco's do have a need at the wide receiver position, but we felt if it's not CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Judy, they're completely fine with taking someone else with that 31st overall selection. So they go here, Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle. He'll replace DeForest Buckner, which is the guy they traded away to get this selection, and he'll be a lot cheaper than DeForest Buckner. Javon Kinlaw, our pick for the San Francisco 49ers.
I'm still not a fan of that trade. Will not become a fan of that trade. I like Javon Kinlaw a lot. I think DeForest Buckner was such a high-end talent, though, just to trade him away like that. I know you couldn't pay him, but it just sucks. But Kinlaw is a supremely talented defensive player. He's someone that I was kind of hoping that if the Lions were to trade down, they'd get an extra first-round pick and take him, but that's probably unlikely and unrealistic. So I'd say this is a pretty good fit for the 49ers.
100% agree with you there, Chase. Next up, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they need some help.
Yes, they do. The Buccaneers, like their defensive back core is just yikes. So that's why Mr. CJ Henderson out of Florida is going to come in and be an immediate impact guy. You know, there's some talk that he might be a top 10 pick. So we have him falling to 14 because that's just really how we see it all working out. But, you know, maybe he goes to a team like the Jags instead. We'll see as it comes along. But regardless, CJ Henderson is a definite NFL-ready defensive back. He's going to come in, have a major impact. He's going to be a very hard player to try to game plan around. He's just a really supreme talent. And who knows? He very well could be a top 10 pick. Like, I don't think he's as close to Okudah as some people think, but there are some people who think they are like actually pretty close.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chase. And I have seen stuff about how Henderson is the better cover corner, whereas Okudah is more well-rounded. Not sure what I think about that. I agree CJ Henderson could go number 9 to the Jags, as the Jags did lose Ramsey and Bouye all last season, so we could see him there. But I think the Buccaneers taking him with the number 14 spot is probably a really nice spot for him.
Yeah, I agree. And if somehow he's still available for the Cowboys when they pick, then the Cowboys will sprint to the draft board to draft him, but he won't be. So let's move on.
Yeah, 100%. Next up, the Denver Broncos with that 15th overall selection. They address wide receiver here with Henry Ruggs III out of Alabama. A speedster, a guy that'll pair nicely with Cortland Sutton. Drew Lock has a nice cannon arm. It'll be a nice weapon for Drew Lock and those Broncos.
Yeah, you're a guy who has a lot more faith in Drew Lock than I do. I think he can be fine. I don't think he's anything special. I don't think he's going to be like a great quarterback by any means. But, you know, give him a couple weapons. Maybe he surprises. They signed Melvin Gordon. They still have Philip Lindsay. So that's two great running backs out there that both should be used. I assume Melvin Gordon will be used pretty heavily. But throw Henry Ruggs on the outside. Just sign him on a streak route. Beat the defensive back and just hit him downfield. You know, that could be the new Tyreek Hill, really.
Yeah, and you could have a really good offense there if Deshaun Hamilton finally makes some steps to being that really good slot receiver that we thought he could have been before last year started. So could have a great offense there. And Chase, honestly, I feel like the only reason you're not as high as me on Drew Lock is because Alec threw like 40 interceptions with him in our Madden franchise.
No, I was not high on Drew Lock before that happened. And then that happened. It's like, oh, well, there's a reason because Drew Lock sucks.
Or is it because the player behind the sticks isn't very good?
Well, I mean, obviously, but we don't need to mention that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Chase, let's now go with the Atlanta Falcons at pick 16.
Yeah, so this will be Clavon Chason out of LSU. It's supreme talent, on the edge. They could really use this defensive support. The defense last year was pretty atrocious. They've still got the great offensive weapons, and really no need to do anything. Signed Todd Gurley this offseason, so maybe he can come in and be an awesome running back. So really, they definitely need to go defense here, and Clavon Chason is just too good to pass up, I'd say.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. We weren't sure if the Falcons were a 4-3 or a 3-4. We were thinking if they are a 3-4, they may go AJ Epinesa, but we decided let's go the safe route. Let's go Clavon Chase on a little bit better of a speed rusher compared to Epinesa. And then we also thought maybe running back, but then we are like, oh yeah, they got Todd Gurley. So they're fine for right now. They may address running back later on in the draft, but a good pick for the Atlanta Falcons going Clavon Chase on. Next up, we've got the Dallas Cowboys with the 17th overall selection. They need to address the secondary. We thought, maybe CJ Henderson drops. No, he did not in our mock, so we give them Xavier McKinney out of Alabama, a nice safety for him, and it's really going to help because that's their biggest weakness by far.
Yeah, if they can show up those defensive backs, Dak has a more consistent year, and then Zeke, doesn't hold out again and starts off slow. Like, the Cowboys could be a legitimate team. I really like a lot of their individual talent. I'm still not a big Dak guy, as I know you aren't either, but a lot of their other individual talent I do really like. So if it all comes together the right way, like, they could be a very legitimate team this year. So if they can shore up those defensive backs, Xavier McKinney should come in and be an immediate impact guy. I know I've said that about a lot of players in this draft, but I do think there's a lot of players in this draft that are immediate impact guys, not even just in the first round. I think through the second and third rounds, too. This is a very good draft for teams. It's just going to be weird to see how it all shakes out with the coronavirus going on.
Yeah, most definitely. And when you're selecting first round guys, you want him to be an immediate impact. So it's really nice to see even teams like here with the Cowboys at 17 getting a player that will help step in right away in Xavier McKinney. And I agree, Chase. I think America's team is going to be a playoff team this year.
Yeah, I would be shocked if they're not, personally.
All right, Chase. Next up, we've got the Miami Dolphins at pick number 18. This is their second pick in this draft. Who do you have the Dolphins going?
So it's hard to pass on Andrew Thomas, offensive tackle out of Georgia at this point. Guy who was looked at as maybe the best offensive lineman in the draft coming into this college football season. Things changed. Some other guys performed really well. He wasn't bad by any means, just maybe wasn't as stellar as some people would have hoped. I still think he very well could become the best offensive lineman out of this whole group. So to get him at 18 when you got your young quarterback, he's day one starter, and I think the Dolphins would be very happy with this pick.
Yeah, most definitely. Him falling all the way down to 18 is an absolutely awesome pick for the Miami Dolphins. And I personally think he could be the best offensive tackle right out of the gate. Maybe not have the right, or maybe not have the best potential overall, but right out of the gate, I think he could be one of those top guys. He's not a 6'7", 360-pound Mekhi Becton, but he is very skilled. He does have all of the mechanics you want to see in a good offensive tackle.
Yeah, he's very technical, and that's what you want out of offensive lineman. You want technicality, you want those mechanics, and he's very good at both those things.
Yeah, and it's very nice to see the Miami Dolphins. They address offensive line and quarterback in the same draft. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun for the Miami Dolphins fans.
Oh, yeah.
All right, next up, we've got the Oakland Raiders, their second pick of this draft. At 19, they're going to select Trayvon Diggs out of Alabama, a corner. They need help in that secondary. They got the wide receiver help and CeeDee Lamb in the Jerry Jeudy in their first pick. They get Trayvon Diggs here, and a really great pick, and he's really going to help out that secondary.
Yeah, this pick just makes a lot of sense. Seamless transition, yet again, really could use secondary help. I like Diggs a lot. I think he's got a lot of potential at the NFL level, so it just makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And, we think Diggs is a little bit better than guys like Fulton and Terrell. That's why we have him going to the Oakland Raiders. But next up, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they've got a name that's very recognizable.
Yep, so the Jags will select Christian Fulton, defensive back here out of LSU. Talented guy. We just brought him up in the conversation that we were just having. He should be, yet again, another day one starter. He's going to come in, should be the top guy for the Jags, really, because the Jags, defensive back group, especially the corners, are just atrocious. So he should come in, be an immediate impact guy. That defense needs as much help as they can get. So really, depending on how much defense they draft, we might see quite a few defensive rookies starting this year for the Jags.
Yeah, honestly, I think the Jags just need to go best available, whether it's defense or offense. They go Christian Fulton here, a really good player. We think he is the best available here, outside of maybe wide receiver, but we don't think wide receiver is the biggest need for the Jags, so we think they go elsewhere. Christian Fulton, a great selection for them.
Agreed. They can hit that wide receiver, in round 2, 3, or 4, where they can still get a talented guy.
Exactly. Next up, the 21st overall selection. This is the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're selecting Justin Jefferson out of LSU, wide receiver. The Eagles need a lot of help with that wide receiver group. They had a lot of injuries last year, but they don't have very high end talent when it comes to that wide receiver room either, at least in my opinion. So I think they go one of the best wide receivers in this class, and Justin Jefferson. Carson Wentz is going to get a lot of help here from a guy like Jefferson.
Yeah, I really like Justin Jefferson. I think he transitions into a pretty good NFL wide receiver. He's a guy who maybe is a little bit of a slow starter right away. I think he could still have a year one, day one impact, but maybe not to the level that Lamb or Judy will. But it's just a pick that really makes a lot of sense, and I really like this option for him as, he could probably become the number one receiver there, like pretty quickly, I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, you got guys over there that can't stay healthy, don't have the high end ceiling. We saw JJ Arcega-Whiteside. He came in last year, and was he having injury problems, or was he just not picking up the game?
I mean, he definitely, when he was getting in there, he was struggling. I know there was some injury things, but he was given chances. He wasn't really targeted, or when he was targeted, just wasn't really coming down with much. So pretty disappointing season for a guy that you had a ton of faith in. He kind of grew on me as the offseason went along, and kind of realized, oh, he's got some real good opportunity here. And then just disappointed for me in Dynasty all year.
Yeah, so that's fun. But yeah, Justin Jefferson, a great weapon for Carson Wentz with that 21st overall selection. Next up, Chase, you got the 22nd overall selection.
Yep, the Minnesota Vikings will happily select A.J. Terrell, cornerback out of Clemson here. This pick just makes sense. That defensive back group is pretty yikes. This guy is someone who I really like. Like, personally, I was on the train, or if the Lions didn't draft Okudah, I was begging for A.J. Terrell to be available in the second round. I don't think it'll be the case. It's very unlikely. But for whatever reason, they go Isaiah Simmons. I was hoping Terrell could be available day two. But I'd be surprised if he's gone. If he's not gone day one, I should say. Excuse me. And the Vikings just happen to be a really great choice for him. Really great spot for him. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And A.J. Terrell, a bigger bodied corner. I'm not sure if he's going to have like a super immediate impact. Not sure he's going to be a starter day one. But if he grows a little bit, he really could have one of the highest ceilings for corners in this draft. And, I mean, the Vikings, they need it. They lost Rhodes, they lost Waynes, they lost Alexander, they lost a ton of pieces in that secondary. So, A.J. Terrell, a great selection here for the 22nd overall pick. Next up, we've got the New England Patriots at 23. And would you look at that? Quarterback Jordan Love out of Utah State fell right into their lap. I'm sure Bill Belichick will be foaming at the mouth. So excited for this selection. And it sounds like Jarrett Stidham is not the guy. I heard reports that the Patriots are interested in taking a quarterback high in this draft. And Brian Hoyer actually will most likely be the day one starter. So Jordan Love falling here. Patriots are going to love it.
Yeah, this is a guy that I'm wary on in the draft. I know you're wary on. But to get him in this spot for the Patriots, a team like the Patriots, it's probably a really good fit for him. He's not a running quarterback like some people say he is. He really isn't. He can move if he needs to, but he's going to throw the ball. He's got one of the more natural throwing motions. He's one of the more natural throwers really in this draft. I just still don't like his high end upside. I don't know if it's the same as the other three quarterbacks in this draft. Maybe he can go to the Patriots and do something similar to what Tom Brady did for his whole career and then be so successful that it doesn't matter what his high-end ceiling is. But if he's going somewhere, this is probably one of the better fits for him, honestly.
Yeah, 100% agree. And this is a mock draft. What separates this from, something else is this is a mock draft where we are picking based off what we think the teams would do versus what we would do. So personally, when we go back to that Browns pick at number 10, you look at Mekhi Becton there. We personally would go Andrew Thomas, but we think the Browns would go Mekhi Becton. Same case here. We're not the biggest Jordan Love fan. I personally think he's a round 2 talent, so I wouldn't pick him here. But if the Patriots are right here on the clock, Jordan Love's there, I think the Patriots aren't going to pass on him.
Yep, that's fair.
All right, Chase, next up, the New Orleans Saints picking at 24.
Yeah, with this pick, I think this is a great choice. The Saints should be really happy about this one. Linebacker Patrick Queen out of LSU. He's my personal favorite linebacker in this draft. I think he's got a lot of talent. He did some pretty impressive things in that national championship game. Not just the national championship game. He was impressive all season, but the national championship game, he really showed that high level ability that he has. I think he is someone who has the potential to be a Pro Bowler in the NFL. He's got a lot of, he's going to get a lot of opportunity with the Saints because their linebacking core, like it's solid at best. It could really use some help. So bringing in Patrick Queen, a talent like that, is a great choice.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Patrick Queen, my favorite linebacker as well, and he gets to stay in Louisiana, so a great story for him. Next up, we got the number 25 pick. This is the Minnesota Vikings. We think they address wide receiver here. Just like the Raiders, they address wide receiver and corner. So the Vikings, they will go Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State here with the 25th overall selection. We know Alec is a big fan of Brandon Ayuk. I'm not as high as Alec on Brandon Ayuk. I could even see Ayuk being in the second round, but there's been a lot of hype about Ayuk over the last week, so we think that pushes him into this 25 spot.
Yeah, I think he's a day two guy also. I don't think first round is where his value should be, but for a team that needs a receiver, it's very well possible. So this fit makes sense. I'm sure Alec would be happy and sad about it because I know he wants the Lions to take him, which I don't think the Lions would at any point. But this pick just it makes sense, but I'm still not sold on him being day one.
Yeah, I agree with you. And they lost Stephon Diggs, or at least they traded Stephon Diggs away. So they bring in Ayuk to pair with Adam Thielen. A nice selection for the Minnesota Vikings. Next up, Chase, the final selection for the Miami Dolphins.
Yep, they are definitely going to be happy with their day one draft, as the Dolphins are going to get AJ Epinesa out of Iowa. And I mean, like, this dude's got legit NFL talent. We were talking about him, in the first half of the draft, and he just happens to fall to the Dolphins here at the 26th pick. I mean, this draft first round could not have worked out any better for them. There was two guys, maybe they were thinking, okay, maybe we can go receiver and running back going into it. But when the guys that fall to them did, when the guys like Adrian Thomas and AJ Epinesa fall to you, yeah, you just got to take them. You have no choice. So the Dolphins would be supremely happy with these two picks, of course, with their number one pick also in Tua, and they would probably win day one of the draft.
Oh, yeah, I 100% agree. We were going through the mock draft, and we're like, wow, this is a perfect fit. This is a perfect fit. This is going to work so well. And then we get to the 26th pick, and we're like, why the hell is Epinesa still on the board? So we had to take him here with the Miami Dolphins. Miami has a lot of needs to fill, and they just got to go best available here. Epinesa, a great pick out of Iowa. I don't think he's a very good speed rusher, but if they can kick him on the inside, if they play a 3-4, maybe put him at edge in that 3-4 defense. He can be on the inside, use some power moves, get to the quarterback. He's not going to be one of your premier Khalil Mack type speed rushers, but a really good player that could be a high-end talent in a 3-4 defense.
Absolutely.
All right, Chase, with the 27th overall selection, we have the Seattle Seahawks going Gross Matos out of Penn State, another edge rusher. We've talked about a couple already. We think Gross Matos is good. A little bit of better speed rusher than Epinesa in our mind. Not as good as Clavon Chason, but the Seahawks, they lose Jadeveon Clowney in the free agency, so they got to go Gross Matos, replace him here.
Yep, Mr. Yetur himself. Such a weird name. But he is a great transition from Jadeveon Clowney, if you ask me. Like, sure, he might not have the high-end ceiling that like Jadeveon did, but if you got to replace them in the draft where you're drafting, the value is about as good as it gets. It makes a lot of sense. The pick makes a lot of sense. They could look offensive line, but really Russell Wilson has so much success as it is, even with the terrible offensive line, that I think they can survive and try to get, a day 2 or day 3 guy instead.
Yeah, and also we talked about it while we were doing our mock draft. We talked about, there's some decent offensive linemen you can look at in that second and third round. There's really no edge rushers after this point. The edge gets very risky, so Gross Matos, a great pick there. Next up, we've got the Ravens selecting number 28.
Yeah, with this pick, the Baltimore Ravens are going to happily select Kenneth Murray, a linebacker out of Oklahoma. This is a guy who I had faith in being a higher first-round pick. Not now, I still like him, but there's other guys that I just think are just so much better. But to get him at the 28 spot is tremendous value for the Ravens. Mike's Cincinnati Bengals will get to play him twice a year for the next few years. That's going to be a lot of fun. He's a guy who I think has that ability to make an immediate impact. Might not be like a sure thing right away, but you work them the right way, and he can make the day one impact and be very successful for quite a few years.
Yeah, most definitely. And 2 years ago, they lost three of their starting linebackers. This past season, they lost another one to the Cincinnati Bengals. They replace them with Kenneth Murray, a nice linebacker there with that 28th overall selection. Moving on, we've got the Tennessee Titans with the 29th overall selection. They are going to replace Jack Conklin with Josh Jones, offensive tackle out of Houston.
Yeah, it's just a pick that makes a lot of sense. Like, they really need the best offense line they can get if they're going to keep running the ball with Derrick Henry like they do. Even if they don't want to decide to pass a little more, give Ryan Tannehill as much protection as possible. Let him, use his receiving options, give him the best potential to throw the ball. But regardless, whatever they do, they really need to make sure this offensive line is in tip-top shape. Otherwise, that offense could really struggle.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Ryan Tannehill is not a guy that I can see throwing for 4,000 yards and 35 touchdowns. This offense completely runs through Derrick Henry. If you don't have that top line, it could be strugglesome for them. Next up, we got the Green Bay Packers selecting at pick 30.
Yeah, with this pick, the stupid Green Bay Packers are going to select T. Higgins, wide receiver out of Clemson. T. Higgins is a guy, for whatever reason, he's fallen a little out of favor with me compared to other receivers. I still think he's a first-round talent. I think this is a good pick for the Packers. It makes a lot of sense. He should come in, be an automatic supplement to Davante Adams. Aaron Rodgers finally gets another legit receiving weapon that he hasn't had in quite a few years. So this is upsetting as a Lions fan, but it's a pick that just makes way too much sense for the Packers.
Yeah, I 100% agree. They've really tried to hit on wide receiver the last couple of years, taking a lot of guys in that third, fourth, fifth round range, and really haven't hit on any of them. So they go here with T. Higgins, pair him with Davante Adams. That could be really nice. And Aaron Rodgers, with those two weapons, could really have a resurgence in his career.
Yeah, he can. And it's time for them to spend a first-round pick on a receiver. Even though it's a deeper receiver class, it's time for them to spend a first-round pick on one this year.
I agree. I think the only way they don't go receiver is if someone big falls, or maybe they trade up and look for a Jordan Love type player, but we'll see. Next up, we've got the 31st overall selection. The San Francisco 49ers are back on the clock. We mentioned receiver is a need for them, but we're going to go Javon Kinlaw with that first selection. This time they do go after wide receiver. They go wide receiver from Baylor, Denzel Mims, a guy I've loved for a while now, and at the start of the draft process, he was looking like a fourth, fifth, maybe even sixth round pick. He blew up the combine. He looked stellar at the Senior Bowl. He is now looking at that first, second fringe round talent. So Denzel Mims going to the 49ers here.
Yeah, I really like Mims too. A lot of his allure, though, was that he was going to be such a late pick and was going to be a steal because he could be an immediate impact guy being that late of a pick. Now that everyone knows who he is, it's a little disheartening. I still like him. I still think he's going to have a lot of success. It makes sense that he can go this high. I would not be shocked if he's a day one pick. I would expect it to be more of a day two pick, but this pick would, like this spot right here, would not surprise me at all. He's got supreme talent. He's got NFL size. He's got everything really that you want out of an NFL receiver. He could really have a lot of success in the right system.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we talked about maybe looking Jalen Reagor or Laviska Shenault with the same pick, but we thought Deebo Samuel kind of matched what those players could bring to the offense. So let's go the bigger-bodied Denzel Mims for the San Francisco 49ers. But finally, we've got the 32nd overall pick, the Kansas City Chiefs. Chase, who is going to end the first round?
The Chiefs are going to be very happy to get Jeff Gladney, defensive back out of TCU, with the last overall pick. Like, this guy's definitely a first-round talent, and he's just one of those probably ready defensive backs, and their team, whose defensive back group is definitely lacking. So the Super Bowl winning team is just going to add to their roster to be even better with this great young talent. Gladney could come in and do some special things pretty quickly, and if they develop him right, has the chance to be one of the best defensive backs in the league.
Yeah, 100%. Jeff Gladney, a little bit of a smaller guy, but it's not really that big of a deal when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs selecting defense because they really need it any way they can get it. If you can get a talent like Jeff Gladney at 32, they're going to be absolutely thrilled. So that was our first round mock, but now we move on to 5 different categories where we'll talk about 5 specific prospects that may match that category. So let's go over the categories real quick, and then we'll get into picking our players. So Number one, you got your favorite prospect in the draft. This doesn't matter if you think he's gonna be the best in the world or the worst player. It's just who do you absolutely love in this draft. Next up, you got player with boom or bust potential. Then you got player with a high upside that you can find in that third round or later. Let's look at some later guys. Do they have potential? Who knows? Fourth, you got a player that you're afraid to take a player you are afraid to take where they are projected currently. And then finally, a player that could have a shocking draft position. This means a guy that really is being mocked in the first round, but could fall to that second, third round. Or maybe a second, third round guy is going to be a first rounder. So a guy that's really going to shock people where he gets selected. So Chase, first up, let's do favorite prospect in the draft. Who do you have?
My favorite is gotta be my boy Laviska Shenault, wide receiver, Colorado. Dude, this guy is just an absolute machine. I love everything he brings to the table as an NFL receiver. He might not have a day one impact, which is why he probably won't be a day one pick. But he is a guy who you work him into the offense this year, like introduce him to the NFL game, and you work them the right way. He is going to be a stellar wide receiver. He could be one of the better ones in the league. He can be a team's number one receiving option. I love his talent. I would be thrilled if the Lions drafted him. If the Lions drafted him, I would order a jersey of Laviska Shenault immediately.
All right, Lions, if you want your sales to go up, go ahead. Pick them with that second round pick. Laviska Shenault reminds me a lot of a Deebo Samuel, a guy who's very versatile, can play multiple different spots. So I understand the intrigue you have for Laviska Shenault. But my favorite overall player in this draft is Denzel Mims. I've talked about him for a while now. I talked about him in past WNP episodes. I put out there on Twitter, on my personal Twitter, that I think he's going to be an absolute stud. Look for him in the 5th, 6th round. And then the draft process happened, and now he's a second, first round type talent. And I think it's awesome to see that he is finally being recognized, but at the same time, it kind of hurts me. It's like, hey, I was on his train first. I was following the Denzel Mims train first. So a guy that I think can be productive right away. A guy, honestly, I've got this high of praise for Denzel Mims. I think he could honestly fit in a similar role as like an AJ Green. Maybe not be that high-ended, but I can see this guy being a Pro Bowler.
No, I agree. He definitely has that ceiling. So whatever team gets him is going to be very lucky. It just sucks that no team's going to get him as an absolute steal anymore.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, Chase, let's now talk about boom or bust prospects. Who is your biggest boom but biggest bust prospect?
I think mine is the most obvious. The one I chose, the most obvious one in this draft, would be Justin Herbert. You know, he is my favorite quarterback, one of my favorite quarterbacks I've seen in a long time in the draft. If he is successful, he can develop his game. He can read defense a little better, be a little more patient, be a little more accurate. He could be a top 3 to top 5 at the worst quarterback in the league. But if he goes to a team, they are not able to develop him right. They can't work with him. He doesn't refine his skills. He could be lucky to be a backup in a couple years. So, like, he by far has the highest ceiling of any quarterback. I don't think it's even close. But at the same time, he has the floor of like a 7th round or undrafted quarterback. So it's pretty scary. I really think he can hit it. I think he's more likely to hit it than not hit it. But we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chase. He is the poster child for boom or bust prospect. The guy has insane physical tools. Looks like he could be one of the best prospects in the whole draft. But does he have the decision making? Does he have the confidence? I think if the team that takes him is patient with him, is there to kind of coddle him, then he could really turn out to be a true star in this league. If they're not patient and they're not going to give the guy all the confidence in the world, then he might not be a player in the NFL in like 5 years. So definitely a good boomer bust prospect there. My boomer bust is actually going to be AJ Epinesa, a guy that we have going 26th overall to the Miami Dolphins. I think this guy is a truly super talented 3-4 defensive end, and I keep mentioning that. I think he is more of an interior defensive end than an exterior defensive end because he doesn't have the speed to be a Khalil Mack, a Von Miller. But he does have the power and the kind of not finesse moves, but power moves that an Aaron Donald might have. So I think if you kick him into that 3-4 style defense, maybe even look at him being a defensive tackle, he could be a really good player. Not the level of Aaron Donald, but could definitely be a Pro Bowler. Whereas if you expect him to be your pure speed rusher, a guy on the outside, I feel like he's kind of going to be like a Solomon Thomas, where the name kind of just disappears. He wasn't being played in the right role. He couldn't pick it up. So that's why there's my boomer bust. Epinesa, if he's in the right system, he could be amazing. If he's in the wrong system, he may falter.
No, that's very fair. I agree 100%. That makes a lot of sense. He's a guy that we talked about, being holy crap available here at 26. That's great. But if the Dolphins do use him improperly, he will fail tremendously. That's a great point, and I have to agree 100% on that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next up, Chase, we got to talk about some later round guys that have a really nice ceiling that you wish your team could take in those later rounds. So, Chase, who do you have?
Mine is actually my favorite offensive lineman in the whole draft, Calvin Throckmorton out of Oregon. If anybody doesn't know who this guy is, I'll tell you this right now. At Oregon this year, he played every single offensive line position and was graded above average at every single offensive line position. This dude is the definition of versatility on the O-line. He had the problem with people like not wanting him in the first couple rounds is that he didn't just play left tackle, didn't just play center, didn't do whatever, and just dominated that all season. He had a bounce around everywhere because Oregon had a ton of injuries. He was by far their leader on that offensive line. So he was just so tremendously talented at each position too that if a team drafted him, he might be able to play right away at any single offensive line position you need. So I think he is someone who is tremendously undervalued, and I am begging the Lions to take him. I would have no problem with the Lions taking him in the third round. If he's still there in the fourth round, I would cry tears of joy if the Lions took him, or tears of pain if the Lions did not take him.
Well, if the Bengals take him, I think you'll be happy too, right?
No. Screw the Bengals.
Yeah, a very good player. And Oregon has had one of the best offensive lines in the past couple of years. I mean, you got great players like Penny Sewell, who will be coming out next year. But yeah, I agree. This guy could have really high-end, a really high-end ceiling and could really be a steal in the draft. However, he won't be the biggest steal in the draft because that would be Willie Gay Jr. out of Mississippi State. I think Willie Gay is a phenomenal talent. He has the production over there at Mississippi State, and really, he is a very good athlete. He ran a 4.46. He's 6'1", 243. So not the biggest, but we see a lot of guys like Roquan Smith on the Bears, a little bit smaller, but really good athlete that can really do a lot of good things. So I think Willie Gay is a phenomenal talent. He's got the athleticism. The only problem with him is he might not take the right angles, but he is a natural leader, a guy that can go into that defense and be a captain within the first couple of years. So I think as long as a team is willing to work with him on, angles and reading the plays, then this guy could really be a phenomenal player and be an every year starter for a team.
That's fair. I still think Calvin Throckmorton is going to be the biggest steal of the draft, so you're entitled to your own opinion. But I'm a big fan of Willie Gay. He's got a lot of talent, and I do think he has legitimate potential to be an NFL threat. But I think Calvin Throckmorton is a guy who could be a borderline Pro Bowler again every year in a couple of years. So.
Ooh, interesting. All right, Chase, next up, let's do player you are afraid to take where they are projected.
So my choice, I went with Mekhi Becton. We had him going 10th overall to the Browns. He's a guy whose stock jumped tremendously because of how well he did at the combine, how well he tested, how well he just everything he did at the combine just heavily improved his stock. He did nothing negative. But the problem with me with offensive linemen is, sure, you want a big offensive lineman, you want an offensive lineman who can test well, but the most important thing for an offensive lineman, in my opinion, is the technicality. It's the technical movements. It's the foot speed, it's the footwork, and it's something that he's fine at. I don't think he's elite at by any means. Whereas a guy like Andrew Thomas is just, in my opinion, the most technical offensive lineman in this draft. So I would much rather take Andrew Thomas over Mekhi Becton. Mekhi Becton at 10 is way too high for me. I would spend a second round pick maybe on him and then try to develop him. I would not want him to be my future of my offensive line.
He's huge. He's a monster, and teams are going to love that. 6'7", 360-plus pounds, a guy that tested off the wall at the combine. That's awesome. You'd love to see it. But is he there when it comes to the technical abilities like you were talking about? I personally don't think he is. I'd probably place him top 4, maybe top 5. Maybe he drops to that number 5 offensive tackle position. But I agree with you. Andrew Thomas is better, and I think Mekhi Becton's still a first-round talent, but he's going too high. I agree with you.
That's fair. That's fair. What do you got?
I have Mr. Jordan Love as Jordan Love. Oh my gosh. He has skyrocketed up the board after the combine, which I don't really even understand. He wasn't the best quarterback at the combine. I think Justin Herbert was. So
the combine and the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, Justin Herbert won the MVP, yet some people are still talking about Jordan Love over Justin Herbert. I don't get it. But Jordan Love, he's now a late first-round talent in most people's eyes. I disagree. I think he's probably mid to late second-round talent. People are talking about his arm angles. Oh, he's Patrick Mahomes because he can throw the ball differently. No, I disagree. The guy had 20 touchdowns and 17 interceptions in his senior season at Utah State. That's horrible. I don't know why he's going this high.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%.
All right, cool. That was easy. All right, let's do, last but not least, a player that could have a shocking draft position, a guy that may go higher or may go lower than most people think. Chase, who is a guy that you have in that category?
I guarantee you Jake Fromm is gone by the end of the second round, and don't be shocked if it's the first half of the second round. Teams going after quarterbacks are always going to draft a quarterback early. Jake Fromm did not play like a day 1 or day 2 quarterback this year. He definitely played like a day 3 quarterback, but teams, love the type of quarterback Jake Fromm is. There's still a lot of the old boys club in the NFL that like that type of quarterback that are just standing in the pocket, try to be calm, try to read the game instead of, guys nowadays like Joe Burrow, Tua, Justin Herbert, they're able to move out of the pocket. They're able to do some more creative things. So Jake Fromm will for sure be a second round pick, probably in the first half of the second round.
Okay, well, isn't that fancy, Chase? Because I am picking someone from Georgia as well. However, it is not Jake Fromm. It is going to be Isaiah Wilson, offensive tackle out of Georgia. He will be the don't be surprised. I won't say he will be, but don't be surprised if he is the second Georgia offensive lineman taken in the first round. Yes, I said the first round. This guy's projected to be a late second round, maybe even a third round guy. I think he could go up to the first round as he's similar to Mekhi Becton. He's a huge dude. He's got a ton of talent. He doesn't have the technical abilities, so I think he really should be around a draft round 3 talent, but I could see him jumping up to that first round.
No, that's fair. I agree with that. It is very possible. I would not be surprised. I would be probably disappointed in the team that took him that high because I'm with you. I don't think you should be that high of a pick, but it definitely would not surprise me.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot more hype on Isaiah Wilson recently too. It's kind of like a Brandon Ayuk situation where people are like, yo, Isaiah Wilson's supposed to go a little bit higher than most people have in those mocks, but again, mocks are completely off this year according to NFL execs, so who knows what happens. Our mock is probably maybe 50% correct, maybe?
I hope. That'd be awesome, honestly.
If we go 100%, I think you owe me something.
I owe you something?
Well, we'll make Alec, Graham, and John owe us something.
Okay, that works.
All right, cool. So there you have it. Our mock drafts are 5 categories and 5 players that match the categories. That's it for this episode, guys. We hope you guys are incredibly excited for the NFL draft like we are. It's this Thursday. It should be super exciting. And next week, we will come back and talk to you guys about how the NFL draft played out. I'm super excited to talk to you guys next week because it's just going to be phenomenal. I'm very excited for the 33rd overall pick because I already know who my Bengals are taking at 1, but it's going to be a very exciting week, that's for sure.
Yeah, that is very fair. I am more pumped than I've ever been for a draft, so it just sucks that I won't be able to spend it with the boys.
Yeah, unfortunate there. But that's it for this episode, guys. We want to thank you for coming out and giving us a listen. If you guys could hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell to turn on post notifications. That would be awesome. Put down there in the comments what you guys think about our mock draft, if we're stupid for having someone go so high or stupid for having someone go so low. We appreciate you guys coming out and giving us a listen. We want to thank you for everything. If you guys want to stay up to date with all that we do, you can go follow us on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. That's it. Thanks so much. And as always, we're not professionals.